Yes, people, what's happening? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to another edition of the Opposition Preview. First things first, guys, make sure you smash the like, subscribe if you're new around here, and as always, leave your thoughts in the comments below. And Chelsea back in action after the disappointment at Wembley, heading to the Emirates on Tuesday night. Huge game against Newcastle, which could have massive implications in both the title race and the race for Europa League qualification. Arsenal, after a difficult week, returned to winning ways against Wolves and are now back at the top of the Premier League, albeit having played a game more. Chelsea had it needing a win, 3 points behind Man United and 3 points behind Newcastle. And a win would move us level on points in that tight race for the Europa League. I mean, Chelsea have actually turned up in the bigger games this season, given a good account of ourselves. But yeah, trip to the Emirates is going to be tough. Delighted to be joined by Lee from AFTV. Mate, great to have you back on again, as always. Big game, this one. The one earlier in the season at the Bridge finished 2-2 in a game that we probably should have won. Said that about a number of Chelsea games this season. Also, after losing to Villa and going out the Champions League, returned with a big win at Molineux. How are you feeling about the last 4 or 5 games? Because obviously you've got us, Man United, Spurs to play still. It's tricky, but you're still in with a shout at the title.
Yeah, very tricky, very tricky. I think like the next 2 games will really define what's going to happen. Obviously, both London derbies, 2 of our biggest rivals, Chelsea and Tottenham, of course. I don't know how I feel about this one again at Chelsea, because different with the Spurs game, because there's obviously like they've got things riding on that as well. And when you put it there, what you just said, I didn't realise, that it's a tough battle for the Europa League, and you actually feel like that perhaps Chelsea are not bothered about that, but obviously that when you think about it, maybe they are because of Europe and that. So it's a big game, but I do think the pressure's on Arsenal. Got to win it. A draw is not a disaster for Chelsea. It is for us. So listen, you guys know what it's like to be in title races when you're playing opposition that you've got to beat, and there's not so much riding on it for them. We're not quite used to that over the last few years, so it's a little bit new to us. I'm not going to lie, and it's going to be a tough game. I'm not looking forward to the game, because not that I fear that we ain't going to win. It's just that it's the worry of not, dropping points. Listen, I think Arsenal. I think it's no secret. I think Arsenal, if they're going to win the league, they've got to win every single game, and that doesn't mean to say that they're going to, but we have to win. We have to win on Tuesday. We have to win on Sunday. And put the pressure on. This is a massive game for us, Joe, because before we play, what shall I say? Like, we have this game, and then we could be 4 points in front of Man City. Like, they haven't got a game till Thursday. So, if you was to draw this game, what would be 2 points in front, or lose this game 1 point with 2 games in hand, the cushion then you've got for Man City, you can't get given that sort of cushion away. So we need to put the points on the board and put a bit of pressure on City. And you don't know. Listen, you've done us favours this season by taking points off City and Liverpool. So it's going to be tough. Dare I say this about Chelsea? You just don't know what Chelsea's going to turn up.
You don't. That's the thing. Like, in the smaller games, like, we've really struggled. Really poor draws against Sheffield United and Burnley. But yet in the bigger games, we've competed really well. We've played against Man City really well twice in the league. We've done very well against. We did well against yourselves earlier in the season. We beat Tottenham. We beat Man United a week or so back in a big game. So, we in the bigger games we have tended to turn up, but again, away from home, it's not been as good for us. We have struggled on the road. We do desperately need some form of European football. Our run-in's tough as well. We've got you boys Tuesday night. We've got obviously Aston Villa as well to play. We still got to go to Brighton. We've still got to play Tottenham. We've still got West Ham, all teams in and around that top half. But obviously Arsenal slightly, I'd say, improved on last season. There seems to be a bit more of a steeliness, a bit more of an efficiency about the team, perhaps not playing as good a football as last season, but a couple of poor results, as I said, against Aston Villa in the league, going out the Champions League and whatnot. You still get that tag thrown at Arsenal that they can't really do it when it matters. I mean, Lee, what have you noticed as the big differences between Arsenal last season and Arsenal this season. Obviously, Declan Rice has come in and made a big difference. You've added Kai Havertz and whatnot, who's kind of done okay in his first season.
Yeah.
What do you feel the differences are between Arsenal this season and Arsenal of last season? And do you think this team's better?
I think that defensively we're better. I think that even against Wolves, didn't play well, but defended and got the clean sheet. I think last season, if you look back, I think that Ramsdale was too busy, considering like we was having 60-70% of possession and all that. He was having to make 5, 6, 7 saves. Now Raya's making 1 or 2, if that, in a game. So particularly away from home. So I do think Declan Rice has made a massive difference to us, and I also think that we've learned a little bit from last season, but that doesn't mean to say that's still not quite enough at this moment in time. I look at it and you think to yourself, right, to win the league, Arsenal had to, from January, had to win 18 games and draw 1 against Man City, like to guarantee us winning the league. That's the sort of levels of consistency that you have to show. Obviously, like the defeat against Aston Villa was a definitely a big blow to us because it wasn't expected, particularly at home. But I think in every league title campaign, you always have 1 or 2 games which are going to go like that. But against City, it's very, very difficult. I think we're consistently better than what we was last season. But I still think that we're not quite right at home. I look at us and think, well, we've dropped more points at home than we should have. I.e., lost to West Ham, Fulham, we drew points to Tottenham. And Aston Villa. Now, if you look at those sort of games, you think, yeah, okay, I can accept perhaps the Tottenham and an Aston Villa, but West Ham, Fulham, at home, you've got to see yourselves over in those sort of games. And if you have a look at Man City, they've had 1 blip maybe at home, but not 3 or 4, and that's I think there's the problem. If we look back on it, I think that's where it will be. Listen, going back to the Chelsea game at the beginning of the season, didn't play well in that one game, Charlie. I think Chelsea played really, really well. Then could have won it at the end. We had a mad 20-minute spell, but they was the sort of things that you've got to be really on every sort of game. You can't be complacent. I'm not saying we was against Chelsea, but you know what I'm saying. You've got to be at it every single game, and even when you're not playing well, that's when the defence comes in. And I've looked back at the Wolves game. I didn't realise how bad the game was, to be fair, because you're sort of engrossed in it, but we wasn't good. But defensively, they breached us once. And I know they had players missing and all that, but that's nothing we can do about that. But I did think it was a nervy performance from us. And this is my problem with this Arsenal team at this moment in time. I still think we're learning at the business end of the season, and I mean that there is nerves there is pressure. I think that's the word you have to say. There is pressure on these games, and going into Tuesday as well, there's pressure, and I felt our fans felt the pressure as well. I know that I did. I didn't enjoy the game on Saturday. It was just about getting the result, So the longer the game goes on, I think that it favours Chelsea. But do I think we've improved? I think we have improved. I think that we're, consistently doing better now, and we just got to continue that. Whether we can get over the line or not, I don't know. The biggest disappointment for me is in our hands against Aston Villa. That was the thing. If we'd have won that game, and I know we would have been, if we'd have won that game again, and I know it's all ifs and buts, but if we win that game against Aston Villa, we're 4 points clear now going into the game against Chelsea. Beat Chelsea, 7 points clear. Yeah. You know what I mean? And even though they've got games in hand, that's a lot of pressure, Charlie, to put on a team. And what I see on Saturday with you boys against Man City, you put pressure on them, and all right, they found a way to get through. Did they find a way to get through, or was it Chelsea that really messed it up? In my opinion, I think Chelsea should have won the game. So I don't think that Manchester City are at the level they were last season, and we've got a little bit better, but I don't know if that's enough to get us over the line at this moment in time.
It's so hard because, like, in any other time, Arsenal probably would have had a couple of Premier League titles under their belt. But when you're competing against the machine that's Man City, as you say, even dropping a couple of points in the draw could be the difference between winning and losing the title. Like, you pretty much have to be nearly perfect, which makes it so difficult to obviously beat them. But I mean, I know hindsight's a wonderful thing. Do you think, looking back now, having seen what Granit Xhaka's done at Bayer Leverkusen, do you think it was a mistake to let him go in the summer? Do you think he could have actually been pretty useful and maybe been better alongside Rice than, say, a Jorginho or a Thomas Partey?
Yeah, look, listen, hindsight is a wonderful thing, and I would have kept Xhaka for another year. But I honestly believe that the plan was to bring in a Declan Rice and have Partey playing alongside of him, and it probably would have edged Granit out. And I think that there was obviously a conversation where Granit weren't going to be playing regular, and I think that he wanted to play regular. You don't know. Like, it's worked out that Thomas Partey's been injured most of the season. Probably Granit Xhaka would have played a lot more. I would have liked to have seen him stay for another year, and that wasn't with hindsight. I said that at the beginning because I think that he was pivotal to what we done last season, and also that little bit of experience. Because as good as Declan Rice is only 24. You know what I mean? People forget that, so where Granit's in his 30s, but. Yeah, I think it would have been a good thing. Kai Havertz has certainly come to the party over the last sort of 3 or 4 months. Has settled in well and doing okay, but I still don't think we've got that position sorted. I think Thomas Partey will play against you guys. So I think in the last 20 minutes against Wolves, it was no coincidence that Declan Rice was really playing really well because he had that assurances of a Thomas Partey behind him. So we'll have to wait and see, but. I would have kept Granit for another year, But listen, he's been a good servant for us, and I suppose at the end of the day, if you wanted to go as well, you had to. It was the right thing to do, not holding him against his wishes or whatever. I don't know, but I would have liked to have sat another year, and who knows what would have happened. But I know it sounds silly. He probably would, if he'd have stayed for the year. Thomas Partey would have stayed fit all year. You don't know, do you?
Yeah, it's weird how football works out in
weird
in
how
those
football
ways.
works.
Yeah.
Exactly. So you
I mean,
can't really put it in one way or the other.
I mean, I've seen. I mean, moving on to Mikel Arteta, I've seen criticism about his use of the squad, his squad management, particularly with Bukayo Saka. Not giving him a rest when perhaps he should have a rest. Clearly he's not fully fit. He's playing through some sort of Achilles issue. What have you made of Arteta's management of the squad this season, and particularly his use of Bukayo Saka?
It's a good question. People keep bringing up these stats of these players playing and all that. Look, if you're going to win titles, your back two, your central defenders should be playing most games, which is what's happened. Your goalkeeper plays most games. Your back four, I think, if you look at most teams that win titles, look at Chelsea, for instance. You've been swapping and changing all the time. I look back at Arsenal over the years, done the same. Once you get that back four sorted, I don't really think you want to be giving them other players minutes unless you have to. I know you have to rotate a little bit and all that. The rotation for me comes in the front guys, not so much the back. And Saka, it's very, very difficult with Saka. It's like saying to you guys now, right? You're going to leave out Cole Palmer,
We can't do it.
You can't do it.
You can't do it.
He's that good, you know what I mean, and pivotal to how you play. A little bit like that with Saka. He if he's not playing well or he's not doing something, he's always likely to do something. So, I remember in a game, I can't remember what game it was, and he wasn't playing that well. And my mate turned around and said, "You got to get Saka off. He ain't doing the business." You know what I mean? And then bang, he scored. And that's why you keep those players on, the last couple of games he's looked a little bit jaded. So I understand it to a certain degree. But don't forget, I think you could probably have rested Saka if Martinelli would have been fit, because what you'd have done is maybe put Martinelli over to the right-hand side on a few occasions. So you can't... We've had Martinelli out for, I think, since the Sheffield United game. So I don't know how long ago, that's 6-7 games ago. So when people go, "Oh, you got to rest Saka," okay, rest Saka, but you've got Martinelli out the side as well. So it's like taking your two wide players out, one because you've had to, and one unnecessarily. So I do think I don't really understand where the criticisms come from, and particularly when nothing's been resolved yet. We could have probably been 2-0 up against Villa, and that game could have been different, and no one would be saying all these sort of things. So I think it's a big couple of games for Saka. Nothing would give me more pleasure than seeing Saka scoring against Chelsea, scoring against Spurs, and everybody going, that's how it is, But he does look a little bit tired. I do think he gets a bit of rough treatment, and he gets some on Tuesday, and he gets some on Saturday. But don't top players get rough treatment? Yeah. I'm pretty sure. I don't watch Cole Palmer every week, but I'm pretty sure he gets a few digs in.
We had it with Eden Hazard.
100%. Of course he did.
It happens when you're a threat and you're a top player for your team. You're going to be singled out by the opposition, and I suppose it's about how you deal with that. I mean, looking at Arsenal across the front line, I mean, something that's been levelled at them a lot is a lack of a proven goal scorer. You did last season. You shared the goals out pretty well. This season, Saka's top scorer in the league with 14. I mean, Jesus and Nketiah have only got 9 goals between them in the Premier League. It's not great. What do you make of the forward line this season? Because I think it's fair to say that Martinelli's probably regressed compared to last season. Yes, he's been out of injuries. Yeah. Jesus not doing the business. Nketiah is just not up to the standard required when you're going for Premier League titles. Do you think you're missing something in that final third?
Yeah, I do. Listen, I think if everybody's fit and firing, then maybe not, But like Jesus has gone through a few injury problems, as you said, Martinelli has as well. If we'd have had the striking form that they were showing last season, who knows? But don't forget, even last season through that campaign, I think 4 months without Jesus, you know what I mean, was difficult for us. And I feel that since Jesus has come back, he's not quite been the same, as you say about Martinelli. And I think it's in those moments, we've been scoring goals 5-6 against teams like that, but it's in those moments, a little bit like you guys on Saturday, when it really matters, those top games, Bayern Munich away, you're under the cosh a little bit, and then all of a sudden, bang, a goal comes in, and you've had it, Drogba, we've had it with Henry and players like that. And sometimes you walk away from the ground and you take it for granted. You might 1-2-0, you might have even won 3-0, but there was that moment in the game when you was up against it, and all of a sudden the game's gone for you because of 2 moments of magic. A ball flashes across and you score. And I still think with Arsenal at times, if Arsenal play bad, they don't win. And I mean really bad. Do you know those games when you play really bad? And we've all had them, like when and then all of a sudden we played really bad and you've won 2-0, Drogba scored both goals or Henry, and you don't really think about it. So I do think that we just need that 20-30. Well, 20. If you look back at Arsenal when they've won the titles, we've always had someone score 20 goals.
Yeah,
I guarantee it.
I think you have to. I guarantee
it. I guarantee it. I'm pretty sure if you go back to Chelsea's title wins, there's someone with 20 goals in there.
Yeah.
So Haaland, I don't know how many he's got, but I bet he's got 20 goals this season.
He's got 20. Yeah, him and Cole Palmer have both got 20 in the league this season. They're joint top for the Golden Boot. Yeah.
That tells you all of it, really. So I just think that it's fine when you're sharing around goals, and it is great. But it's those nitty gritty top games. I'll go back to the City game. It wasn't our greatest performance at 0-0, but if we had Henry that day, who knows? Or someone like that, a Van Persie or someone like that, we might win that 1-0. When you look back and you go, that was where it was, and don't get me wrong, titles, you've got to have the other players chipping in. We've had Overmars chipping in, and like players like
as well, yeah.
But you had that focal striker wherever you went. So I do think it is a little bit of a problem. It may get us over the line. I don't know, but it's these games now. Charlie, that the pressure's on a little bit. Like, you know, if you go back to Martinelli, like against Bayern Munich, his
Really
chance,
good, massive chance that.
massive chance. But it looked to me like I've got to get this on target and just instead of just smashing it and see, you know, like. But if you're a proven goal scorer, you smash it in. You know, just things like that. Listen. There's a reason why you pay big money and big wages for those players, because they are match winners, and so I do think that it could come down to that, because I think come Tuesday it's going to be a tight game. I don't think we're going to run away with it by any stretch of the imagination. So, you know, can you, if you've got, say you've got an Henry, just say an Henry or a Van Persie playing up front, just you know, imagine it there, like, you know,
Like transforms the team instantly.
Yeah, can you afford to have two players on Saka every single game? I don't think you can.
I think that's probably the problem with Arsenal. I think with us to a certain extent as well, is that because despite the quality across the team and despite how good you are as a unit, you still are pretty reliant on Saka to deliver something. And it's the same with us as Cole Palmer. Maybe there's just in the sides right now, they're not enough game changers, not enough match winners, so that the pressure's always on one player. And when they don't deliver, it's not, you haven't got you haven't got like massive problems, but it makes it a lot harder. And like when you're so reliant on one player, if they don't do well, the other team, like the rest of your team, are like kind of scratching their heads and like, oh, what can we do here? I mean, Pochettino himself has admitted on our behalf that, you know, sometimes when things are difficult, the players just give it to Palmer hoping he does something. That's not a sustainable tactic to try and to try and win games. I mean, just last thing on Arsenal briefly before I get your thoughts on Chelsea. If you do ultimately come up short in the Premier League and end up winning nothing again, where does that leave Mikel Arteta? I'm not saying that, you know, he should be gone. I'm sure there's some Arsenal fans, maybe a minority for sure, that think he should go. But if you were to miss out on the title again, where does that leave Arteta and what he's doing at Arsenal?
Well, I think questions would be asked. I think that, and rightly so, it depends how we finish the season, Shah. If we go on and win all these 5 games and we don't win the league, I don't think you can really, you know, you got to roll your hands up and say, wow, you know what I mean? That's unbelievable. But if we was to lose to Chelsea and lose to Tottenham and maybe draw at Man United and then win our next 2 or whatever after that, then, you know, questions would be asked. I think that he deserves another go at it. I really do, because for the last 2 seasons we've challenged for the title. There's no 2 ways about that. I don't care what anybody says. We're into latter part of April now, and we're top of the league. So that is a title challenge, but we've got to see it through to the end. And then I think that he's got to bring in 2 or 3 top players next season to just get us so that we can have that rotation a little bit more. And then I think next season, Charlie, he has to win something. He has to get himself over the line next season with no excuses. So because there's going to be that thing labelled at him. You can get so far, but can you get us over the line? You know,
almost like a nearly team.
Yeah, and there's been so many of them over the years. You know, don't get me wrong. You know, so and it's the longer it goes on, the pressure comes with that as well. Like, you know, so I think that these next 5 games are important for obvious reasons, winning the title, but also for the future as well. Like, where we're going to be going. Like, you know, because you don't want doubts going into it. Oh, and I get that when people turn around and say, "Oh, it's April. Oh, don't worry about it. They fall off the rails at the end of the season." And then if you continue to keep doing it, that's what's going to happen. So I think that I get people not being happy with the situation and all that, like. But I think you've got to really put it into perspective that where we are, what we've done, and we're challenging, and you've experienced it as a Chelsea fan. Completely different challenging for a top 4 till it is challenging for the title.
Oh, yeah, massive.
There's a big leap. You know, you can afford to lose 7, 8, 9, 10 games and still get top 4, and wow, it's a great season. But when you're going for the title, you've got you know, be off colour 3 or 4 times of the season. So it's a different thing. So I do feel that he deserves another crack at it. But if we was to get into this position next season and fail, I think then there'd be massive questions. So a lot of pressure on. And do you know what, Charlie? I'm going to say it rightly so. There should be pressure on the manager of Arsenal Football Club. We should be challenging for the title. I don't care what anybody says. I'm not saying winning it, but we should be challenging for it, And over the last few years, the thing that I've moaned about more than anything is not winning the titles, is challenging for them. But I think that Arsenal should be challenging. We are. So as much as I'll lose me head if we don't do it and whatever and be disappointed, but at the end of it, if you look at the bigger picture, he's done a good job so far. He needs to get over the line in either this season or next season.
No, 100%. I mean, just briefly, mate, before we round out, thoughts on Chelsea. Obviously, we're struggling this season. We could still get Europa League, maybe Conference League. Not where we want to be. What have you made of what Pochettino's done? And obviously, we are massively in debt to Cole Palmer. Had a superb season, 20 goals in the Premier League and counting. He's been ridiculous, better than anyone would have expected him to do. And should be in the England squad for the Euros. I mean, arguably could be in with the start of starting potentially. I know obviously him and Saka will be competing for that place on the right hand side. But yeah, just your thoughts briefly on Chelsea and what Cole Palmer's done this season.
Well, I think Cole Palmer's been absolutely unbelievable. I'll tell you what, Pep gets away with it, doesn't he? I don't know how he's sort of been allowed to get away with letting him go because he's been sensational for Chelsea. And listen, do you know what? You need something like that. Chelsea have brought in some good players, but they're not quite worked at this moment in time. A young squad. It'd be really interesting. I'm going to be really interesting to see what route Chelsea go down even the next year or so, like with Pochettino, with the way things are going. Are they going to be patient with him or not? I know there's a lot of Chelsea fans that are not, and the way things are going. But it'd be very, very interesting to see what happens with Chelsea over the next year or so.
No,
I think they've got to sort their back four out. I think there's got to be a little bit of investment there. A goalkeeper. I think you've got to get yourself a top-class goalkeeper. There's still a lot of work to do for Chelsea to start challenging, but they've got the foundations down. Maybe Chelsea fans don't realise it, but you've got some young players, a gifted player in Palmer. Just need a couple of additions and a couple of the younger players that have been bought just to what's the word I'm looking for? Like mature a little bit more, and I think they'd be fine. I think Pochettino is a good manager. I really do.
I do as well.
I'm not. What's the word? Ridiculing you when I say that and saying like Manchester United. I want Tin Hag to have a 10-year contract, but with Chelsea, I firmly do believe Pochettino's. I wanted Pochettino as our manager.
Well, he was linked. He's been linked with Arsenal. He's been linked with Man United. He was linked with Man United in the past. He's a good manager, and I think look, he's got things wrong this season, 100%. But I think also people have massively underestimated how difficult this Chelsea job is,
100%.
considering starting from scratch. And I honestly look at it and think, tactically he's been naive, in-game management's been poor at times. But ultimately, I look at it and I think, I don't care what manager is managing Chelsea this season. They're not going to have done much better at all. A different manager is not going to suddenly have us in the top 4 this season. Like top 6 is the ceiling for this squad right now. And I think in the circumstances to make an FA Cup semi-final, to make a Carabao Cup final, yes, it's not of the standards that we're used to being at. But right now, this is a different Chelsea. It's a new guys for us, and we're going to have to accept that it's going to take a little bit of time, and we are going to be a bit shit for a couple of years.
Yeah, and I think you're dead right now. And I also think that where a lot of people said, Spurs have come in and the manager's got them into this and all that. I think that with Chelsea, I think it's underestimated. When you've got so many players and you've got to let so many players go fantastic interview with Frank Lampard when he's saying that he was, when he went in there, he's had to say to 10 players, you've got to go and train over there because you can't train with here. And then the next game, you're bringing ones in and things like that. You've got to route all of those things. And I think that's where it's difficult, the behind-the-scenes things. I think where Arteta had those problems as well behind the scenes, but he was backed and allowed to do what he was doing. And I think that's underestimated at Chelsea a little bit, how difficult that is for the manager. And I think that there's a couple of players there that he needs to move on, and he knows he probably has to move on, but can't move on. All those little things that come into play. It'd be really interesting to see what Chelsea do. Do they stay patient or do they not? Listen, we all know that under the former regime at Chelsea, they wouldn't stay patient. But it was
he would have been gone by now. He'd have been sacked months ago.
He would have been gone, but he wouldn't been working with the players that he's working with now.
No.
There'd have been, Chelsea have always bought in the ready-made top-class players. That was their thought. That was their form, and that was how they went about things. And listen, I've got no sympathy with Chelsea for that.
Mate, you've got what goes around comes around.
Exactly that.
I've had years of enjoying Arsenal's demise, and now it's not so great when it's your turn. But if you dish it out, you've got to take it.
Exactly that. And the thing is with Chelsea is that they've been used to that, but you can't go on that way. The way that Abramovich done it is not sustainable to any other.
In a modern game as well. Like that's not sustainable now. Whether people like it or not, I know project's a bit of a buzzword in football, but patience is required. You can't just drop a load of youngsters into a team and expect it to be molded instantly into a winning machine and be competing. So it's gonna take a little bit of time. Chelsea's not something that's been synonymous with giving managers time. Fans are impatient, but ultimately I think we've got to be patient, and at some point, we do have to just back a manager through a difficult period of form. But whether that's going to be Pochettino or not, we'll find out in the summer. But last thing, mate, score prediction. Tuesday.
I am going to say it's going to be not a very good game. Be very, very tense, nervous, and I'm just going to say because we're at home, we nick it 2-1. I think it'll be a really cagey sort of a game. I was speaking to a couple of my Chelsea mates yesterday at football, big Chelsea fans. And they were saying that maybe this game will suit Chelsea because they're not. What's the word he said? We find it very, very difficult to break teams down.
Teams we're going to and play. We do better.
Yeah, and that's why I think he said that's why he felt that you've done better against the bigger teams because of that.
We do. So, they come out and play. They leave a bit more space. We can get in behind more space there's a bit more opportunity for us to do our stuff. I think when the onus is on us to break teams down, we definitely do struggle more. But I've got to be honest. Going to the Emirates is tough. We got smashed there 4-1 last year under Lampard. We used to do really well there. Drogba used to score all the time. Those were the good old days. Now I think I'm not too sure. I think ultimately we'll come up short. I think it'll be closer than people think, but ultimately I think we probably lose this game. I'm going to say we're going to lose this game 3-1. But
I'll take that, Charlie. I'll take that.
Well, I mean, I'd love to be wrong, but I've got to be honest with what I've been seeing at the moment. I just like Arsenal are miles better than us, but maybe this game will suit us, and hopefully we've got one more big performance in us against the big side, and we can cause some problems. So we'll have to wait and see what happens.
Charlie, let that be Tottenham when you play Tottenham.
We'll see what we can do. But Lee, thanks so much for your time as always, mate. Greatly appreciated.
Enjoyed it.
Greatly appreciate it, guys. Make sure you check out Lee on AFTV and his own channel as well. Smash a like, subscribe to the channel as always, and I'll catch you again in another one soon.